Hi guys, I really hope that you are well. This is a shout out to John because John asked for this video. This is a video reminding you how to do prepositions or teaching you how to do prepositions for cities, towns, countries, states, American states, and British counties. Lovely. It's a kind of source of humour amongst people that make content. This tends to run into lifestyle content rather than some guy with sticky uppy hair in a t-shirt teaching French. But there's this thing where people tend to go, so I'm often asked. And it tends to be more lifestyle thing, like I'm often asked, the secret of my skin. I'm often asked whatever. And I was joking about this week with two lovely people, my Phil and my Simon. And we were just teasing somebody who often says like, I'm often asked, and I'm like, but you're not, you're so not, you just want to talk about that, which is fine, which is absolutely fine. So validate me talking about this by just writing underneath and saying, yes, Lukey, that was quite useful. Please. So I can save face with said Phil and Simon. Equally, I'm going to use John's question as the title page because John asks amazingly good questions. Good. Lovely. John's an interesting character, as well. And you come into contact with people that learn French for different reasons. But John's got family in like, Nouvelle-Orléans, like New Orleans, or La Nouvelle-Orléans, we should say. So I'm always interested why people want to do French. So he's got that kind of, Georgia, Louisiana connection, which I always find really interesting. Good. So I will use John's question as the title page. He sent me a voice message and I was like, no, I think you're going to have to write that out, John, because I'd just been teasing somebody about it with Phil and Simon. So off we go. Prepositions with cities, towns and countries. So what I need you to do today, other than ignore my sticky uppy hair, I need you to keep a very, 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 very close eye on the following concepts. Concept number one, to go to a place and to be in a place are often the same preposition. And that blows people's minds because we are used to saying, I am going to London, I live in London. Or you're used to saying, I am going to Paris, I live in Paris, and it's a different word. So I want you to get that concept down, that most of the time that is going to be the case. We also start talking a great deal about gender of places, and people go, how do I know the gender of a place? There's a system for this, but it's not actually what we're going to rely on 100% for me. I want you to get away from the male and the female thing. Definitely. I want you to also keep a north eye on what's going on at the beginning of the word, letter-wise, and at the end of the word, letter-wise. And we're going to be using two different systems to do that, okay? That's really going to help you. I'd also, finally, before we do anything, and I always say this with grammar, is just make sure you link it up and say it in a soft mouth when you say it. These teeth are far too white. I'm getting them put back to what they were before. They're far too white. But I'm speaking English because you can see the teeth. So, hi, my name's Luke. I'm doing a video for my friend John, yada, yada, yada. If I speak to you in French, alors, salut, alors, effectivement, je vais te parler. You don't see the same amount of teeth. So just keep your mouth soft. You'll remember the grammar if you've said it softly. So just say everything softly. Keep it soft in French. We don't want to distort the face. We want your lovely, handsome and beautiful faces to just stay soft. And that way you'll remember the grammar. Your mouth will remember saying, en France. You won't go, France is a feminine country, therefore I need this preposition. We don't want to be working like this. We want a muscle memory, yeah? I always come back to analogies from dance and horse riding because it's what I used to really know before both of them got buggered up by the delightful doctor, insert blank word. So often you just go to do something and you're like, I don't quite know what I'm doing here. Oh, well, let's just see what my body remembers within you. Oh, yeah, and you've got the choreography. It's got to be the same in language. You can't walk around the whole time going, I need one of those. Thank you, Carol. You can't do that, all right? So keep your mouth soft. Let's get going. Cities. To the city, in the city, ah. Preposition ah. Ah, with the accent. Yeah, not like he has, not il-a, all right? So I'm going to Paris, je vais à Paris, I live in Paris, j'habite à Paris. Cities by definition can be male or female. You can say Paris est beau, Paris est belle. I personally would tend to say Paris, c'est une belle ville. There's a female, gorgeous, light. Men are gorgeous, but I mean, like, there's a female quality to Paris that people often talk about poetically, so you might hear the feminine, but by definition, cities are male and female. But we use a. La ville is a feminine word, but we say à Paris. Je vais à Paris, j'habite à Paris. It will be the same preposition for both, okay? Going to it, being in it. Coming from it, de. Yeah, so je vais à Londres, je viens de Londres. Je vais à Berlin, Berlin, je viens de Berlin. So à and de with cities. Side note, a couple of exceptions. If cities have, and this is rare, have a double, so like if you had an article, we say the Cairo, le Caire, La Paz, Le Havre, we also teach. So I'm going to Cairo, we would make the a and the le join. So je vais au Caire, to the Cairo. Je viens du Caire, I'm coming from the Cairo, way to say that. It always makes me laugh. In Welsh, if any of you have seen Gavin and Stacey, Barry, as in Barry Island, is a Barry. It's the Barry, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, which always makes me laugh. Gives it a sort of bit of, I don't know, bit of elegance. So largely though, you don't need to worry about that. So if you've got a masculine, masculine, feminine, just a for a city. À Paris, à Paris, à Paris, à Paris, just a, all right? Same with small villages, it doesn't matter the size. Where I live, there's 9 pubs and 2 garden centres, but it's effectively a crossroads when I'm outside of London. Used to tell people where it was, then had a cray-cray lady want to move in there. And then she was also looking at another house where my other grandma lived. So it was a bit like, oh, quite a lot. It's quite a lot. So I'll keep that to myself if that's okay. But by all means, if you want to see me, come and do the language meetups in the city or come to Besançon on the trip with me. But yeah, so in other words, small village is exactly the same. Je vais à, insert name of small village. Yeah, doesn't make any difference. If you had, je vais en Avignon. So Avignon in France, as in the song, you know, Le Pont d'Avignon. Older generation people would say en Avignon, but I've heard young people say à Avignon. So generally cities are à and à. There are a few cultural exceptions, but à and à. Lovely. Next up. If you are dealing with a country, I want you to start thinking about the last letter of the country. And when we get to states, American states in a moment, I want you to start thinking about the first letter of the country. So when you go with a country, we're formally dividing it between feminine countries, you use en, en, and masculine countries, you use o, a-u. E.g., je vais en France, je vais au Canada. And that blows people's minds. For the first reason, en is very busy in French. It means in. Not the way that dans means in, but it could be in and then a gerund, so in speaking with Luc, en parlant avec Luc. It could be the pronoun some, or one of them. So je vais en acheter, I'm going to buy some. It's a busy little word. Au, to the, is not anywhere else in French, classically opposite to en. To the, au, a and le becoming o, the feminine would be à la. So notice that there's not an oppositional feeling to en and o, apart from with countries, yeah? But that is what we're going to do. So if your country ends in the letter E, you are predominantly going to assume it is feminine, and you are going to go with en. Pardon the noise, I just scratched my hairy tummy, I do apologise. So en France ends in an E, en Allemagne ends in an E, en Italy ends in an E, okay? There are a couple of, and again, I'm going to Italy, je vais en Italie, I live in Italy, j'habite en Italie. Je vais en France, I'm going to France, j'habite en France. So going to, living there, going to, living there, being there, same preposition, same preposition. Je viens de France, je viens d'Italie. You're going to use the de in reverse, the same as you did with the cities. However, there are some countries that have an E on the end, and they are still masculine. Mexico, whether or not we've got this from the Spanish, because we've kind of grown up from Pig Latin in French and Pig Latin in Spain to become, well, what was Spain to become, what was where it was to become Spain. We maybe because we know that it's like Mexico in the Spanish, but we know that Mexique is masculine, so au Mexique. Yeah, there are some exceptions. In the United Kingdom, au Royaume-Uni, le Royaume-Uni. Americans that might not be fully up on this, I fully understand this, but we've got a difference between England, Scotland, England, Wales, Northern Ireland, Ireland. I accept for some people the Northern Ireland thing is a contentious issue. I'm teaching the geography, not the politics. If you had in Great Britain, so the difference of the United Kingdom versus Great Britain, Northern Ireland, whatever. So one would be the landmass that England, Scotland, Wales is on. One would be that plus Northern Ireland. So the differences, and I know that's confusing for people from abroad, but en France, en Angleterre, au Royaume-Uni, masculine, because Royaume, although it ends in an E, is a masculine word. En Grande-Bretagne, in Great Britain, because Bretagne, en Bretagne, because it ends in an E, that's feminine. Bretagne meaning Brittany, so as in northwest of France, Brittany, rather than shaves a head, has a fabulous back catalogue, Brittany. So this E at the end business is largely going to take care of most of your choices. If the country ends with an E at the end, you are going to go en. If it doesn't, if it ends with another consonant, if it ends with another vowel at the end or a consonant, it's going to be O. So au Japon ends in an N, au Canada ends in an A, whatever. Few exceptions, like I said. There are obviously plural countries, like in America, the United States. So the States United. And this is a nice trick. You're always going to have a double liaison. You're always going to have z, z. So aux États-Unis, AUX, les États-Unis, yeah, z, from the States, des États-Unis, yeah. So countries that are plural, you will use AUX. But if you think about it, you'd use AUX for a feminine to the, anyway, wouldn't you? If you said, I'm speaking to the women, je parle aux femmes, AUX anyway, even though it's feminine, all right? So that's not doing anything too crazy. So to recap then so far, cities are a and a, countries are going to be en for the feminine, or o for the masculine, which would basically mean if it ends in an E, go with en most of the time. If it doesn't, go with o. If your country is a masculine country, insofar as by definition it doesn't end in an E, and it's not an exception, but it starts with an open mouth vowel, like en Iran, you will still use the en. Yeah, so countries that start with a vowel, you will go to the en. It's not comfortable to say o and then a vowel. For the most part, you know that we do that in French anyway. So for example, if I said at the hotel or at the hospital, you know, hotel is a masculine word. We don't say au hôtel, do we? We say à l'hôtel. So you know in normal French that we wouldn't go à le, au, then the vowel word. So it's exactly the same. Yeah. So en Iran, for example, yeah, in Iran. En Iraq, in Iraq. Okay. Lovely. So cities then, a, countries, en for anything that ends in an E that's feminine most of the time, o for everything else, en for if it starts with a vowel. Either way, don't worry about it, just go with en. And o plural countries. Let's move on to states. If we had states, we'd have the same focus going on, but we will have it now on, for my mind, the beginning of the word, So what you're formally meant to say with states is that, again, following the place rules, that feminine states are going to be en, and just like countries, masculine states are going to be o. There's a little bit more to it than that. So firstly, rather than thinking if the state ends in an E, it's going to be feminine, because there's exceptions like Maine, shout out to Stephen King, Maine is ending in an E. So Maine should be feminine, but it's le Maine. So if, for example, we said in Maine, we are going to say dans le Maine, okay, or au Maine. Dans le Maine sounds better for me there. You don't want to be doing this E thing. So what we're going to do instead, which is a system I teach, is if your state name changes from the English to the French, you are going to go with EN. So, Florida, en Floride, DE. Georgia, en Georgie, IE. Louisiana, Louisiane, NE. Carolina, South North, Caroline, NE. Pennsylvania, IA becomes IE, Pennsylvanie. They will be en Floride, en Georgie, en Louisiane, en Pennsylvanie, en Caroline du Nord, en Caroline du Sud, en Louisiane, whatever. They will be en. So that's your first group. So if it changes from the English to the French, you will go with that. Next up, if your state starts with a any other letter that's a vowel, you're still going to use the en system. So for example, on Illinois, on Indiana, on Arkansas, on let me think of a vowel one. Let me bring up my list. Indiana, on Oregon, on Oklahoma, they're going to start with a vowel. So you're going to go with the en, all right? Don't even think about it, just go on. If you are any other state and you start with a consonant, so Missouri, Michigan, I would say North and South Dakota, but they're different. I'll talk about that in a moment. Texas, Colorado, Delaware, Maryland, whatever, Rhode Island. These states, you're going to go with O. So we're back to our on and our O from countries. So O, Colorado, O, Michigan, O, Missouri, O, where are we going? Nevada, Colorado, Rhode Island, O, Delaware. We're going to go to O, okay? O, Kentucky. Good. If you are not one of the new, so let's divide this. We've got en for the feminine changing ones, en for the vowel starting ones as well, and O for the consonant starting ones. These two here and here that are not the changing spelling ones can also use dans le most of the time. Texas doesn't like it, but dans le. So for example, in Kentucky, dans le Kentucky. According to our classic spelling rules, it's masculine anyway because it doesn't end in an E, and we're not looking at an exception. So dans le Kentucky, dans le Colorado, dans le Michigan, dans le Missouri, whatever. People that follow me from so many different states are going to be so annoyed. They'll be like, why didn't you mention my state? I'm pretty good. If you gave me a map of Europe, if you gave me a map of the States, if you gave me a map of the UK, I could pretty much get all the counties, all the countries, or the states. I just can't think of them off the top of my head. I'd be like one of those that gets like the Vatican and Andorra and all that weird stuff, you know, or you know, Delaware and smaller little places, you know, but good. So this dans le is an option you can also use as well. So for example, like I said, dans le or dans le combination. So dans l'Illinois or en Illinois, dans l'Oregon or en Oregon. The on is much more common for my mind. You have to use the dans le, if I'm not mistaken, with North and South Dakota. Dans le Dakota du Nord, dans la Dakota du Sud. You have to, all right? So quick recap then for American states. En plus the ones that change into the French word. En plus ones that start with the vowel. O for everything else that starts with a consonant. Or dans le for most of the ones that aren't changed. The ones that aren't changed. If that you find that easy, dans le or dans le, it doesn't matter. But Hawaii is à Hawaii, okay? So quick recap so far. Cities, à, most of the time. Countries, en, feminine, o, masculine. We've talked about the E. O, AUX, plural. De from cities, de from en countries, du from non-en from all countries. You might like to think au, du, au, du. American states, en for the ones that start with a, the ones that have the change into the French, au for, so en for the ones that start with a vowel, au for everything else, apart from Hawaii at Hawaii, and dans le to cover you for anything that's not going to be doing the change with the language. Let's get to the UK. Counties will do exactly the same thing. So because by definition, you know, so a few areas that have got a historical, classical sort of background, like Cornwall, the Celtic connection with Brittany and all of this business, and Wales, you know, en Cornouailles. Je vais en Cornouailles, j'habite en Cornouailles. If you've got a county, I do kind of hear both, weirdly, because the thing is, what you've got to remember is this information is going to be used. So a lot of people that learn French don't quite know what the administrative system is within France for departments. So departments are, for want of a better term, your state or your county. I know you have counties in America, but the county division within the UK. So you have departmental areas, and they've changed, and they do change the way county lines change, and that in the UK. And they have a number, and that's the number that you would traditionally get on postcodes in France, and license plates you used to see on, you know. So these departments are often historically well-known places, you know. So you'd have on for ones ending in an E, again, dans le for regions, you know, that don't. The same thing will happen in France. Exactly the same thing will happen in France. But I'm not going to talk about that because that's a video that I really want to do on French geography that someone else has asked for. So I'm going to leave Dordogne and Auvergne and Bretagne and Jura and all of these places and how you say in them for another video where I'm literally going to have a freaking map at the back of myself and talk about where these places are. But if we were, for example, just went to the UK momentarily, so in Shropshire, dans le Shropshire, in Staffordshire, dans le Staffordshire, you know, in Oxfordshire, okay, by definition, you could say on Oxfordshire because it starts with a vowel, or dans l'Oxfordshire because it starts with a vowel. But the thing that you're doing here is you're telling the French person that you're speaking to that this is an area. And without being, as opposed to a city, and without being rude, that's normally just enough. Because it's not like your average French speaker would know Gloucestershire, Shropshire, Lincolnshire. A few dodges live there. North Lincolnshire in particular. Yeah, it's not like they know those as an area in your conversation per se, but you want to be able to tell them, oh yes, I'm from this as an area, okay? And the tendency is always to say and de. So again, go with the, you know, dans le. By definition, you should still be allowed to say au, like you do with the American states. But I just personally hear and have used and have grown up hearing dans le for counties more commonly and au for American states that are not going to go with the en. That's just where I'd go. So for next thing, we're going to talk about islands very, very quickly. Islands are a absolute fest. They are an absolute, there are so many different prepositions with islands. So you have au Japon, people will talk about, like a collection of islands, but it's because it's a country, but it's masculine. Au Maldives, because it's a country, so it's plural. But you'd have à Haïti, à Hawaii. You'd have en Lanzarote. You'd have en Corse in Corsica. Okay. Yeah, so the preposition with an island can just go freaking everywhere. So islands, I would say, look them up specifically according to your needs. Apart from my friend Todd, who ships yachts and things round the world. Most people aren't. Most people don't need to go to that many islands. You know, so, but if you need to, if you're from one and you know it, you will more than likely have come across it already. So do Google the specifics of an island, because it won't always be the same preposition. It is an absolute, you know, mixture and blend, because of by the way you're thinking them as a combination of plural islands, whether you're thinking of it as a kind of zone as opposed to a country. There's just all things going on. All right. So I hope this video has been useful. Do please let me know underneath if it has. There's a coffee link underneath if that will help. If you feel so overwhelmed with gratitude that you want to send me something, the coffee link is underneath. All right. Do take care, guys. Speak soon. Best wishes.